Chair, I
Yes.
thought with 2/3 to get the water issue on, that was part of my motion.
Okay. I thought we did that. Didn't we? I thought we went over that.
No, that was just discussion to get it on.
Stand by. Okay, so you're correct.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to have Reno and the Vice Chair, Musto, come up because Law and Order took action last Thursday to declare that state of emergency because the village, because of a couple shutdowns of no water. And the tribal office being shut down, couldn't get services out to the people. So Reno and the Vice brought it to Law and Order, so we took action. Then we took action at the special land meeting yesterday to have them, so we can bring it to council, because we want IHS out of Martin, BIA, BOR, whoever has funding to help fix the water issue in the village. So we won't be shutting down all the time. So I'd like to have the Vice and then Reno explain what's going on.
Yes, go ahead. It's all yours.
Thank you. So Land a couple months ago asked the water programs and me to get together so we could talk about the state of emergency because we know our water lines break, you know, whether it's in our municipalities or out in our communities. And so we've been meeting for a couple months now and we came up with the state of emergency. But as we all know, last week there were 2 breaks in Pine Ridge that shut us down for 2 whole days. And I was informed by some of the water guys that once those start breaking in Pine Ridge, they're going to keep breaking. So it is a emergency for our Pine Ridge area for sure, because those pipes are so old. They're from the 30s and they're just going to keep breaking. And we don't have valves, shut off valves in Pine Ridge. So when it breaks in Pine Ridge, the whole system has to go down. So we've talked about prioritizing and things like that, but a state of emergency would really help for us to take to our, the folks who do have funding to say, this is a priority for us and we need your support in helping us get our priorities, which Pine Ridge is one right now. But we know, like I said, we know across the reservation that there are breaks in the various water systems that we have. So that was why we brought the state of emergency to Law and Order last week, and it was kicked to your office, Mr. President. And I know that is more in your wheelhouse, and it was also directed to work with Attorney Gonzalez on that. But we did draft a declaration for a state of emergency. I do believe you have that, Mr. President, and Mr. Gonzalez has that. But just so everybody knows, this is going to continue to happen until we do something. But the state of emergency was really for us to bring people together and really look for funding and resources to get those fixed in place, rather than just continuing to break or fix the breaks that happen, really come up with a long-term solution to these breaks. So that's kind of the gist of the state of emergency. And I know, Mr. President, it's more in your wheelhouse. So if your office wants to take over on it, totally happy to give that over to your office. But like I said, Land Committee did ask me to work with our water departments, which we've been doing. So I don't know if Mr. Red Cloud. Yep.
Good afternoon, Council. I just wanted to give you a little history of this issue with Pine Ridge. Back in the 80s, I worked at Water and Sewer, and And back then, it was an issue then with lack of maintenance. That a lot of the gate valves in Pine Ridge, you know, they were all getting filled up with dirt and then there was getting paved over. And you lost a lot of valves, so what happened is every time, even, this has been going on since 80s, 90s, 2010, that every time you have a break in Pine Ridge, the whole system has to shut down. But yes. Yes, that's what I'm gonna, he's part of this group. I'm gonna kind of go into the history of what Alicia was saying on November 14th. She called a meeting with us and the members that were there were Bob Pilley, Ernie Abold, myself, Chuck Jacobs, Willard Clifford, Alicia, Shayna Johnson, James Begeman, James Ainsley. Our first meeting is we went over the history of the gate valves, what I'm explaining right now, that there is a problem and we're still experiencing it to this day by just last week having to shut the whole town down. But we got strategic on our first meeting. The first phase was, okay, task one, let's do a valve assessment in Pine Ridge. We have the maps, the existing maps, when Pine Ridge was first constructed, the water lines, gate valves, we have all that. In them days they were working, but now they're not. But we tasked IHS if they could give a valve assessment off their maps. Task two was a record of the breaks in the past 2 to 5 years. With the locations, we tasked that to Ernie Abel at Water and Sewer. And he gave us a number which was astronomical, about 20-some breaks within the 5-year span. But then an emergency declaration task was with emergency management. But it all led up, these meetings led up to us identifying the areas in Pine Ridge to key strategic places for valves. So you could shut down East Ridge, North Ridge, Crazy Horse, Old Crazy Horse, different areas with just one valve. But it came to the, where Alicia did the draft or the emergency declaration, and that's where we're at now. But I think it'd be more effective if we could address the situation. I think the programs did theirs by doing the technical assistance with getting the information, but now with the council, I think it's time if we could meet with the federal agencies from the council to the council on this issue, because when Minnie Wachoni came, the intention was for the funding to take over all the water systems on the Pine Ridge Reservation, and that was the way we were directing, but eventually through time, obstacles came in with transfer criteria, policies, or different Bureau reclamation regulations, and it got to the point where it was a lot of water systems like Pine Ridge were being excluded. So I think now is the time where we're in a crisis mode, another break, we're gonna shut down the whole whole water system, and then you're gonna be getting admin leave, and it's affecting us administratively too. But I think today, with this emergency declaration, if we could look at a solution, and I think it was mentioned in the land committee, and then with Alicia, if the council could bring in the federal agencies of the BOR, BIA, and the IHS and come together on a higher leadership role and declare this emergency and try to get some funding to resolve this issue with the water systems in Pine Ridge. That's my, yes.
Bringing HUD with IHS, BIA, they're the ones that put the systems in place in the first place.
Yes.
Every village, we had 17 of them across the reservation that BOR would not accept into the Miniwichoni system. Bob Peely is upgrading those now, and I think he came to council here with Wounded Knee and Manderson, that he has upgraded, and we went and got BOR to accept them into the Miniwichoni system so they could operate and maintain them hereafter. But it was an ongoing project with Bob Peely, and I was just wondering if he had some monies left to help with the upgrade of just the Pine Ridge system.
You,
John,
John,
call Hudden and get them involved. They owe some money for those systems that they put in.
John, that's what we took action on at the law and order meeting and land is that we didn't bring up HUD, but it's open. We want to get all federal agencies that's involved into one room rather than we get on the phone. We want them there to see what they could obligate to help solve this problem in Pine Ridge. And then there's other water systems that we need fixed too, but the emergency is Pine Ridge because that's the tribal office there. We can't be given admin leave and all that stuff. So we're trying to take care of this all in one meeting. That's what we're trying to, and that's what Reno and the Vice and everybody else is involved in, but they're wanting support. So some type of tribal council action to get them people here at the table, not next year, but immediately so we could address this.
So, go ahead, Councilman Cross.
Thank you, Chair. I think we kind of knew that this was gonna happen, way back. And it was when we were planning, we were in the planning stages with the 7 years, 7 generations that we put together a plan, but we knew that somewhere that Pine Ridge would have to be addressed. And so the team that worked on this was, really, looking at that because of the upgrades that needed to happen in Pine Ridge. And then that's where, as legislators, that's where we have to become legislative and to look at ways, because this is gonna be, a multi-million-dollar project just with Pine Ridge alone. And so that's what, and then now I think for moving forward today, I think that's where we're gonna have to sit down and, 7 years, 7 generation is in, we really didn't pay too much attention to that, to the directors and the past directors, but I think we're gonna have to really support them moving forward because they need help. I mean, he needs help. He needs an office. He needs a staff, because, with Pine Ridge, we're gonna have to there has to be a delegation that's gonna have to look at addressing this issue with Congress or with USDA because this is gonna continue, the breaks are gonna continue until we start looking at those, the funding, the plan, and everything that entails to trying to get those upgrades in Pine Ridge, so this doesn't happen. But I know that we did take some action to kind of put Pine Ridge up there first. But we haven't met with Mr. Pilley, but it's gonna take some more meetings to get to that point, so thank you.
Councilwoman Tapia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when Minnie-Wauchoni was getting ready to transition to 7 years and 7 generations, I was on council. I did push for Pine Ridge, but at that time, Pope Means kept saying, Pine Ridge is the biggest ditch. It's going to cost a lot of money, so we're going to put them to last. I remember that, and he was the head of the project, And I've been to DC with Sonia, Jackie several times. We've knocked on doors for this project because this is a mandate by a congressional mandate. And that's why we referred it to Mario to put some language in there to remind them that this kickstarted from Minnie-Wauchoni and that they have to fund it, So today I think that we need to contact USDA, all these other ones and push for this because we saw this coming 10 years ago and it's here now. So that's all I wanted to say is that we need to get everybody on board and get this done regardless of the cost and stop worrying about the cost. Thank you.
Yes.
I guess
Go ahead.
my motion would be to get all federal agencies that may have anything to do with water, to have Alicia and Reno, that working group, to set up a meeting ASAP in person, not none of this on the phone stuff where they don't ever keep their, when somebody looks you in the eye, you can better get better results, but and have Russ or Rand or somebody draft the resolution so we can get that out and.
I got
move
it
this
right here.
forward. All right, thank you.
So, real
I'll
quick,
motion
I just want to comment that, you know, this was, brought to my attention, just a couple, maybe a day ago, and to, bring in, my office and, um, Mario to take a look at it. So I had a meeting with Mario, last night, and then, today he just, drafted up a resolution, and basically states whatever, everything that you guys are mentioning here. So we're already on it. And soon as, if we can, I have it here, but I just don't have it, copies of it, of the draft resolution.
Can you read it?
It's six, yeah. Okay, so it's pretty lengthy, but I think it covers everything.
Read
Hang
the
on, we're
heading.
gonna read the resolution first.
Resolution of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe and Unincorporated Tribe. Resolution to negotiate an engineering contract with Morris Marley Engineering Company of Great Falls, Montana, to assist the Oglala Sioux Tribe in applying for and securing funding from USDA Rural Development or other available federal funding sources to improve and upgrade the water system and pipelines for Pine Ridge Village. Whereas the Oglala Band of Teton Sioux Indians reorganized as the Oglala Sioux Tribe of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation under Section 16 of the 1934 Indian Reorganization Act 25 USC subsection 5123 by adopting a federally approved constitution and bylaws, and the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council is the governing body of the tribe under Article 3 of the Tribal Constitution. And whereas the tribe entered into the following federal recognized treaties with the United States government pursuant to Article 6, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution, including 1, the Treaty of Fort Laramie of September 17th, 1851, 11 Stat 749, which recognized 60 million acres of territory west of the Missouri River as the property of the Sioux and Dakota Nation, which include the Oglala Band of Teton Sioux Indians, to the Treaty of Fort Laramie of April 29th, 1868, 15 Stat 635, which carved out a 26 million acre reservation for the signatory Sioux bands called Great Sioux Reservation, which encompassed substantially all of present-day South Dakota west of the east bank of the Missouri River. And whereas the United States subsequently confiscated the following portions of the Great Sioux Nation by 1, the Act of February 28, 1877, 19 Stat 254, which confiscated 7.3 million acres, the Black Hills portion of the Great Sioux Reservation, thereby reducing the original 26 million acre Sioux Reservation to approximately 18 million acres. The act provided in Article 5 and 8 as follows. A, Article 5, in consideration of the foregoing cession of territory, the 7.3 million portion of the Great Sioux Reservation confiscated by the act and rights, and upon full compliance with each and every obligation assumed by the said Indians, the United States does agree to provide all necessary aid to assist the said Indians in the work of civilization. B, Article 8, Congress shall, by appropriate legislation, secure to them an orderly government. They shall be subject to the trust responsibility laws of the United States. And each individual shall be protected in his rights of property, persons, and life. Whereas all aid and the protection of each tribal member's rights to property, person, and life in the 1877 Act includes a trust responsibility on the part of the United States to provide good, clean, potable drinking water to all tribal members residing on the reservation. And the Act of March 2nd, 1889, 25 Stat 888, confiscated an additional 9 million acres of the remaining 18 million acres of the Great Sioux Reservation. The requisite 3/4 adult male signatures were never obtained by the United States government to constitute a cession. And the 9 million acres were opened up for non-Indian homesteaders. And whereas the 1889 Act also carved out several smaller reservations, including the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, out of the last remaining 9 million acres, sections 8 through 12 of the 1889 Act provided for allotments to the Oglala Sioux tribal members, but contained the following provision in section 9 of the Act. Provided that these section as to the allotment shall not be compulsory without the consent of the majority of adult members of the tribe. And whereas in 1903, the United States Supreme Court decided Lone Wolf versus Hitchcock, 187 U.S. 553, 1903, which held that Congress had inherent plenary power to break treaty obligations with Indian tribes. And whereas the members of the Oglala Sioux tribe resisted allotments on the Pine Ridge Indian reservations from 1889 to 1904. And in 1904, the Secretary of Interior ignored the Section 9 of the 1889 Act and ordered the government's allotment agent, Charles Bates, Bates in South Dakota is named after him, to allot the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation based on 1903 Lone Wolf versus Hitchcock case. And whereas in the Secretary of Interior's instructions to Charles Bates, the Secretary directed Bates to set aside tribally owned lands within the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation for use of the federal government, which included the land that became Pine Ridge Agency at Pine Ridge, South Dakota, classified as agency reserve lands. And whereas over time, the government installed water pipelines at Pine Ridge Agency for government buildings and housings. And whereas in the 1840s, tribal members residing within Pine Ridge Agency reserved lands petitioned the Secretary of the Interior to separate a portion of the Pine Ridge Agency reserve lands to establish a separate community called Pine Ridge Village to be managed by tribal members residing in the village, which the Secretary granted and issued an order releasing the land from agency reserve status and defining its boundaries. The current boundaries of Pine Ridge Village / now Pine Ridge District. And whereas the areas comprising the original Pine Ridge Village contained the former Bureau of Indian Affairs water system and pipelines, which are now outdated and needed to be replaced. And whereas in 1988, Congress passed the Mini-Wachoni Act, Public Law 100-516, 102 Stat 2566, which established the Oglala Sioux Rural Water Supply System, OSR at WSS, consisting of core pipeline and reservation water delivery system interconnected to the core pipeline. The act provided in pertinent part, Section 2A4, the United States has a trust responsibility to meet the economic, environmental, water supply, and public health needs of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Section 3A, the OSRWSS shall consist of 4 distribution and treatment facilities to serve the needs of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, including but not limited to the purchase, improvement, and repair of existing water systems, including systems owned by individual tribal members and other residents of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Section 3B, 1 and 3, the Secretary shall enter into agreements for planning, designing, construction, operating, maintaining, and replacing the OSRWSS. Such cooperative agreements may include purchase, improvement, and repair of existing water systems, including systems owned by individual tribal members and other residents located on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And whereas existing water delivery systems must be upgraded to meet Bureau of Reclamation construction standards before they could be incorporated into the OSRWSS. and covered with annual congressional appropriations for operation, maintenance, and replacement. And whereas the OSRWSS originally contained language for existing water delivery systems within the reservation villages to be upgraded with OSRWSS funds and incorporated into the OSRWSS, the solicitor for the Department of Interior issued an opinion that the onus of upgrading the existing village systems fell on the Oglala Sioux tribe and not the Bureau of Reclamation. And therefore, it was up to the tribe to upgrade village water systems before they could be incorporated into the OSRWSS. And whereas the Oglala Sioux tribe was eventually able to access USDA Rural Development Grant funds to upgrade some existing village systems on the reservation in phases called the 7 Years for 7 Generations Drinking Water Project. And whereas Phase 4 of the project is the Pine Ridge Village Upgrade Project with projected costs of approximately 11 million as of 2017, according to the project engineer report, which still has to be funded with additional funds not included in the original 7 Years for 7 Generations USDA Rural Development Grant. And whereas separate funding for the Pine Ridge Village upgrades should be pursued as soon as possible with a grant from USDA Rural Development or from other available federal funding sources. And whereas the tribe's existing contract, 7 Years for 7 Generations project manager, Craig Newark of the Morris Marley engineering firm of Great Falls, Montana, has informed the tribe that can be contracted by the tribe to make application with the USDA Rural Development or other available funding of federal sources for the initial 11 million needed to upgrade the Pine Ridge Village water system and pipeline with an adjustment for inflation and cost indexing since 2017. And whereas the tribal council is a consensus that a contract be negotiated with Craig Novak and Morris Marley engineering firm to evaluate the amount of funds currently need to completely upgrade the Pine Ridge Village water system and pipelines. B, to make application on the tribe's behalf with USD Rural Development or other available federal funding sources to secure the needed funds. And C, oversee the project once the funds are secured. Now therefore be it resolved that the tribal president, Frank Starr, comes out, is directed to negotiate a contract with Craig Nowak and the Morris Marley engineering firm to evaluate to amount of funds currently needed to completely upgrade the Pine Ridge Village water system and pipelines. B, to make application on the tribe's behalf with USD Rural Development, or other available federal funding sources to secure the amount of funds needed to completely upgrade the Pine Ridge Village water system and pipelines. And C, oversee the project once the funds are secured to ensure that the upgrades are completely within the budgeted amount and meet Bureau of Reclamation construction standards. So the operation, maintenance, and replacement of the Pine Ridge Village water system and pipelines can be incorporated into OSRWSS and covered by annual congressional appropriations for OSRWSS. And be it further resolved that the Director of the Oglala Sioux Legal Department, Lisa Cummings, and Director of OSRWSS Reservation Water Delivery System, Pine Ridge Water Maintenance, Chuck Jacobs, and Director of the 7 Years for 7 Generations Drinking Water Project, Robert Pilley, shall work closely to assist the tribal president in negotiating contract with Craig Nowak and the Morrison Marley engineering firm of Great Falls, Montana, to apply for USDA Rural Development funding or funding from other available sources to be brought the contract back to the tribal council for final approval. Certification.
Chair.
Go ahead.
Good thing you didn't run that motion to vote on that. But we're not trying to get a contract with Morris Marley. We're trying to find some emergency funds to fix the systems that is currently breaking. And we're trying to get whoever wants to write the letter, a resolution to get these people together, to get some funds to, we don't want it to keep happening the rest of the year or whatever. Eventually Morris Marley will come into play or something, because we'll have to bid that out, because it's, I know what their bid's gonna be, it's to be up in the millions. So
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to take care of on an
Yeah, I
emergency
think we-
basis.
I think the purpose of that was just to put a price out there, an estimate. Go ahead, Councilwoman Little Hawk Weston.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I really believe that we need to identify these funding agencies as part of the resolution. You know, not just throw out a letter of support and say, we're going to support you and we want to do this and that. Sometimes that don't even work. You know, we need to identify who we're asking to help support our water project, Pine Ridge Village mainly. You know, I think some of us been on council when the 7-year, 7-generation project, me and James was just talking here, Mr. Cross, you know, that was put in place after rural water was complete. Once the project was done, then Mr. Frank Means came forward with the 7-year, 7-generation project, and he was the director of rural water out of Kyle. So I want to just mention that as part of, you know, giving a background on it. And what he did was he did with Morrison and Marley, they came forward with a timeline and how much it was going to cost to get community upgrades across the reservation. And Robin's right, you know, Pine Ridge Village was kind of put to the end. And it was going to cost approximately what Mario Gonzalez just mentioned, the attorney, was about $11 million. Was going to cost that much to upgrade the system. So today, what we're dealing with is Pine Ridge Village. The constant water breaks and admin leave and everything else that we just currently been dealing with lately. And it's not good for the residents that live there. And I think Robin is right. You know, we've been to DC trying to lobby our Congress people to our delegation about this during that time, not only with us, but at that time with Mr. Means. But then later on, you know, Mr. Means left and then Mr. Pilley was put in. So he was to take that forward, community upgrades, and Pine Ridge Village was still, I was hoping, still on that schedule to get fixed. But today I see that what I was told is that maybe what they should have done was put Pine Ridge Village first and then everything should have came afterwards. Because Pine Ridge Village was not a part of the rural water system. Everyone else was hooked up to rural water except Pine Ridge Village. They're their own community water system under water and sewer. So water and sewer just handles Pine Ridge Village. So that's why I'm saying today that we need to identify all these ones on this resolution to say that we want them to help with this effort. You know, it's very critical that we need to move forward. Robin's always talking about it, you know, about even the health issue with the water system in Pine Ridge Village. So, you know, whenever admin leave is called and seems like everything is shut down in Pine Ridge Village. So I think we need to, you know, not only ask for a letter of support, but we need to identify these funding agencies and these, you know, our treasurer just emailed us one too. You know, we got all these grants through EPA that, you know, this can be a part of that, to look at that, Reno, look at some of these things. You know, I always fall back on Reno because he's the person worked for water and sewer, but he also worked with water maintenance. We both did under operation maintenance at that time. So we kind of have a history of how things should run. But I want to say today that we need to identify these agencies to help with this effort, but not just a letter of support can go right on top of that resolution if we need to. But, you know, we really need to identify these funding agencies and we maybe like Davey said, maybe I'll come back later with how much we're going to pay or whatever. But right now, let's, you know, I'm going to make a motion to to approve the resolution.
I'll second that motion.
Great. Go ahead, Councilman Still.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna recommend to Reno and to the Vice President to this resolution she just read is really complete with the treaty, with the need. And so get this to and contact our legislators, both senators and congressmen, and meet with them. And Morris Marley Engineering, that Craig Noack helped us to lobby Washington for the overall Mini-Wachoni system. So he's knowledgeable about the design of everything from in the river to the reservation. And he's knowledgeable about our dealings with Congress to get it funded. And so I think him and Mario will be very vital in getting this done. Also, that treaty says for our civilization, remind them that we've got a lot of women that need more civilization here so that we can get this money.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to let Mr. Steele know that when we had these water breaks, I already contacted Johnson, Thune and Rounds. Every time we had, I said, I'm writing, it's 12 o'clock midnight. They're out there working, I gave them a whole sob story. So they already know, and I'm sure the president probably did too. Thank you.
Yes. So,
Reno had his hand up.
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Reno.
Okay, I just wanted just to mention, resolution's good, great, but, what I went to the land committee on was this emergency declaration that if we could, cause I think we're already got the phases of what we need to do, but I know with what Mario wrote, is time gonna be of the essence of getting this together, or, cause right now with, when I talked to Davian, is that we did the emergency declaration with Alicia, and we already are looking at getting HUD, IHS, BOR, all of them immediately. This is an immediate response now, and then we could look at Mario's resolution down the road, but that's just my thought.
No, I think we could run the declaration, we can run that one, but I want to still run this motion because we have the treaties and everything else in there. And I think we still need to proceed that direction, but we also need to run the declaration on the water system in Pine Ridge Village.
Yes, Councilman Goldsberry.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just, I had a question for the treasurer, and I was wondering if we had any ARPA funds to help kickstart this off. Cause this is I think this is an emergency, and so we ain't gonna get no help quickly from other places, but also I got another question too, and this is for Reno. Reno, Bob Pilley, Chuck Jacobs and Ernie, have you like been talking to them or anything? Cause it seems like they should be a part of this. I don't know if they, but cause as soon as the water breaks happen, they should have been coming to council and addressing us about that, about what we need to do, what steps need to be done, but I haven't heard anything like that, so.
Okay, you know, November 14th was the first meeting that Alicia got this group together. And we identified back in November 14th of last year, first meeting, we had IHS, all of them there. And we realized that it's a crisis mode, it's crisis management. It's gonna happen again. And sure enough, it's happening again. But we're all aware, they are aware of this issue, but I think the only one today, the spokesman for this issue is myself and Alicia, and we went to the land committee yesterday, so. But they are aware, and back at the land committee about maybe a month or two ago, I requested that we create a water management board. I think we still need to pursue that, but for now, can we request that the emergency declaration be reviewed and approved? And then,
No, we
then
will.
after that, the long-term solution will be to get Mario's resolution in effect, okay? That's just my thought.
Okay, Councilwoman
Both,
Halverson.
yeah, together.
Let's see if Cora had any anything in the ARPA left.
On the ARPA funds, the money that's left in there are left in there for two projects. One project is the multi-purpose building for every district. And the other project is the gravel project, which has not been expended yet. I know, and people do really need gravel. If we could get moving on that somehow, that would be great. But that's what's left in the ARPA budget. We are working on the closeout now, and that final report will probably take about 60 days. And I did ask Tony to review because some of the expenditures that were done in some of the grants can be reimbursed to the ARPA fund because they were named in the grants but done using ARPA funds. So if there's any money there, we could possibly use that for the infrastructure project of fixing water or sewer. I also have a couple of, President Biden put that declaration out for infrastructure projects.
Yeah.
One of them was a water rights project, and another part of it were the infrastructure projects, which were done through EPA. And I think that we really need to have a meeting with EPA to utilize that funding. There hasn't been an actual notice of funding or notice of bids or notice of grants put out yet. Any of them? Just amounts advertised. I did ask Jennifer to make sure she watches, so she's on the list to get emails if they do come in, so I can get them to the chief of staff. I believe we also need to meet with BOR because I know this doesn't affect Pine Ridge, but it affects the surrounding communities. And BOR is very, how do I put it nicely? They micromanage our Maniwee project way too much because they have to have a pre-approval for every expenditure. And then before, after an expenditure is done, they have to approve it again. And then before they reimburse it, they have to approve it again. And that's not even mentioning that it has to go through our grants office, our accountant, and the director of the program. So that's like 6 layers of review for every single expenditure. And in your report, they approved a drawdown, which hasn't come yet. They actually approved 2, which brought the core into black. But the second one, they approved 2 weeks ago. We got a letter. Hasn't come yet, but it won't cover how far they are in the red. So I think there needs to be a meeting with BOR as soon as possible on the water.
Who's in the red? Where?
Maniwee distribution, water maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
And so I think we need to have a meeting with them as soon as possible. But there is a lot of infrastructure projects under EPA, under DOT, under BIA. We just have to make sure that we have someone to apply for them. And I kind of have an issue with Morris Marley because we have several water breaks on Maniwee. And the reason we have the water breaks is because the design changed from the res line. The design is different from there throughout the res. And those were based on recommendations from the engineering firm, which was at the time Morris and Marley. So I think if you're going to have a contract with them, you need to make sure you have a good oversight team, whoever it is.
That'd probably be me, Cora.
Okay, good, long as it's not me.
Me and James.
Okay. You know, I wanted to comment on, you know, I too was also looking at that after the second water line break. I went out to those sites and I looked at some of the repairs they were doing. And the first one was out to Wambalee on the way on that side. And then I followed them in. Well, it broke again after they repaired it. And then there was a couple more here in Pine Ridge. So I also followed up on too and watched those. And just from experience, you know, I worked for BIA maintenance, I worked for IHS maintenance and the tribes maintenance. So I kind of have an idea what was going on, you know, because with working with BIA, we had to utilize the old timers to locate the valves because there's no prints. Same with tribe and IHS. So, and I was watching the engineer as he was doing his location and marking his spot repairs. So and so I asked him about the prints and I did mention to the first water line break. I said, well, how come you guys don't have isolation valves? We need, don't you think it'll be important if I see you doing spot repairs, but you're not installing those valves as you're doing spot repairs. So that's some of the things I noticed. That's, I don't know, I've been in the field for over 15 years, so some of the things I noticed. So yeah, and I did mention that we need isolation valves or bypasses. So with that, so let's run this motion here. Secretary, call for the vote.
Ryan Jumping Senior. Howard Rooks,
Yes.
Austin Watkins Senior. Tyler Yellowboy. Wendell Youngman Junior. James Cross,
Yes.
Anna Halverson,
Yes.
Ella Giancarlo. Oh, he's gone. George Dreamer Junior.
Yes.
Robin Tapio.
Yes.
Tyler Lunderman.
Yes.
David Poyer.
Yes.
Don Roy Gosper.
Yes.
Sonia Little Hawk Weston.
Ha.
Jackie Sears. Garfield Little Dog. John Steele Senior.
Yes.
Craig Dillon.
Yes.
15 yes, 2 not voting, motion carried. Go ahead, Councilwoman Little Hawk Weston.
I don't have the declaration in front of me, but I know it was given to us at the Law and Order Committee meeting.
Sonia, I just,
Gave it to him?
I just sent it up to
Okay,
Stacy.
so could we read that declaration first?
Yes.
Then we'll run I'll make that motion once you read it. Approve.
Okay, well, we can read it.
Oglala Sioux Tribe President Declaration of a state of emergency for the water pipelines, infrastructure, and natural states on the Pine Ridge Reservation and treaty territories. Whereas the Oglala Sioux tribe is a federally recognized tribe that entered into peace treaties with the United States, retaining their inherent sovereign rights and their government-to-government relationship. And whereas the Oglala Sioux tribe is a staunch protector of water because water is life. And whereas the OST Homeland Security protections include the natural and man-made water systems and infrastructure. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated the importance of water in the everyday safety, health, and well-being of the Oglala Lakota Nation. And whereas there has been an increase in extreme health, climate, and weather conditions requiring the protection and access of water. And whereas water infrastructure systems in some areas on the Pine Ridge Reservation have not been updated since 1935. And whereas the water system, pipelines, and infrastructure on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation and treaty territories have continuous and regular issues, including breaks in pipes and valves. And whereas the water system, pipelines, and infrastructure issues have left children, families, communities, programs, social services, businesses, and vulnerable populations without water for periods of time, impacting the general health, safety, and welfare of the Oglala people and the homelands. Now therefore be it resolved, I, Frank Starr Comzat, President of the Oglala Sioux Tribe, with authority delegated to me and by affirmation of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council, hereby declare a state of emergency based on the dire water systems and infrastructure circumstances of the Oglala Sioux Tribe, and warranting the use of any and all extraordinary measures appropriate to ensure the health, safety, and security of the water systems and infrastructure on the Pine Ridge Reservation. In furtherance of this declaration, the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council, OST Executive Committee, OST Tribal Programs are directed to support the OST Rural Water, Water and Sewer, and Water Resources in whatever manner is feasible to help resolve the threat to the Oglala OST water systems. OST Rural Water, Water and Sewer, and Water Resources are directed to identify resources, funding, and support from all sources and agencies and create a plan for any monies identified and received. The Oglala Sioux Tribe will hire a grant writer to apply for upcoming funding opportunities. The OST Rural Water, Water and Sewer, and Water Resources will review and strengthen internal processes and data. The OST Rural Water, Water and Sewer, and Water Resources will prioritize efforts deemed necessary to protect water on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, and in turn, the OST children, families, and nation from threats to their overall health, safety, and welfare. The OST Rural Water, Water and Sewer, and Water Resources will report monthly to the Land Committee and bring forth any recommended actions that may be taken to help resolve this emergency, which will remain in effect until ended by tribal council action. In witness whereof, Frank Starr Comzat, President, Oglala Sioux Tribe. Date.
Motion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilman Little Hawk Weston. Second by Councilman Poyer. Call for,
I have a quick question.
okay,
That last whereas in there, that says that they have to report to the land committee? Is that what it says? The state of emergency, why would they have to report to the land committee? I was just wondering.
They're just keeping us abreast of what's going on in case we need to know.
All right.
yes, go ahead, Councilwoman.
You know, I did refer that to President Frank Starr comes out and Mario Gonzalez to look over that state of emergency because I feel like it needs more language inserted in there to be considered a state of emergency along with like statistics and different things that needed to be incorporated in there. And also it had like
they were gonna apply for a grant, so it already sounded like the tribe had a resolution. So when I heard Mario's, Mr. Mario Gonzalez's, resolution he presented, you know, I'm very thankful that we have him in our tribe. He's like a historical, preservation of all this extensive knowledge in our tribe. But you know, I do want to refer that to Mr. Mario Gonzalez if, you know, before it's approved.
No, it didn't go to Mario, not to my knowledge.
No,
I just got it last night myself, or when the vice president sent it to me.
you know, we took action last week in Law and Order Committee. And at that time, a motion was made to refer it to Mario and yourself, President, to look at the state of emergency and to make sure that we had everything covered based on the treaties and, you know, language, all of that. But I think what happened, I talked to Mario, asked him if he got that action. He said he never got the action or the resolution that was presented to us at that meeting at the Law and Order Committee. But he said, I will try to get it and I will work on it. But today we passed what he submitted, which is the one that I just motioned to approve. So I think that with the declaration, I think, you know, we just wanted that along with what we passed earlier, because I think the other one is more detailed and talks about the treaties and everything that we had asked for. That's why I motioned to pass the declaration itself.
Okay, so, where do you want to go with that declaration?
Just run it, you know. That's
So we
what
have a
asked.
motion on the floor in a second.
Yeah,
Okay, so we'll run it. But I don't think he reviewed it. I know from last night we met. We discussed that we needed to come up with a resolution for tribal council today because we were basically, it was turned over to us. So that's what he was texting me this morning saying that, if we could go in the afternoon, he can write this resolution. And, yeah, he got it done. Okay, so, Secretary, call for the vote.
Ryan Jumping Senior,
Yes.
Howard Rooks.
Yes.
Austin Watkins Senior,
Oh.
Tyler Yellowboy,
Yes.
Wendell Youngman Junior,
Yes.
James Cross,
Yes.
Anna Halverson,
No,
George Dreamer Junior,
Yes.
Robin Tapio,
No,
Tyler Lunderman,
Yes.
David Poyer.
Yes.
Donroy Gosper,
Yes.
Sonia Little Hawk Weston, Jackie Sears, Garfield Little Dog, John Steele Senior,
Yes.
Craig Dillon,
Amen, yes.
$14 yes, 2 no, 1 not voting. Motion carried. Okay, so, yes, go ahead.
Chair, I'm giving my members the floor just for a few minutes. She's been waiting and waiting, so. You mind?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Hampeti washte. Hockey jita EU hockey. Deb Tobacco and Machi Api and Ina Wayaki, Sylvia Tobacco and Atewa Kidero Tukro, Ethiopia. My father's deceased and I live in the number 4 Calico community and I'm from the tobacco Tioshpae. And today I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you. I ask for to be excused by my elders. And I feel that I bring a very important concern and issue to you today, and I appreciate your listening ears, and I know it's been a long day. And I'm thankful that you're able to hear me out and you are meeting in regards to important issues. And today I've heard a lot of acknowledgement of our rights and our treaty rights. And especially for that, I appreciate that. And I served on I'm coming to you as a community member, Oglala Lakota Wia community member. And I'm bringing forth my resignation from the Oglala Sioux Tribe Research Review Board. My background in education is that of AA and chemical dependency, a bachelor's of science in human services, a master's degree in Lakota leadership and management. And I am currently in the process of completing my doctorate of human services, program evaluation, and data analytics. And I served on a research review board for the tribe for the last 6 years, and I fill the seat of a clinical researcher. And within that time, I've had a lot of good experience. And the reason why I chose to join the board was so that I could help the Lakota Oyate, so that I could help our leadership here, you and leaders before you, to be able to make informed decisions in regards to life for our Oyate, in regards to partnerships that our tribe participates in with outside organizations, outside entities, all of which you are talking about today. And I feel that my extensive knowledge in research, its protocols, its regulations, its laws, that of the federal system and of our Oglala Lakota governance here, the IRA, and our Constitution, and the protections of our people as human subjects. As you know, we are a targeted population because of our disposition, the wealth and disparity issues, health and disparities issues that we've encountered throughout the years of the occupation of a foreign government. The colonization happened to us. And so we're dealing with the impacts of that today, and it's continuing. And today, my resignation is because of a research study that was being conducted here for the past few years. It was brought to you a few weeks ago by community members, and it's in regards to the Peaceful Means Research Study / program. And the reason why I resigned from the Research Review Board was because I was unhappy with the review board's decision to continue to support it. I want to just pass this around, and I'd appreciate it if you could just take a look at it, because it's the reason why I'm here today, and it's important that you have this knowledge. I strongly disagreed with the decision that allowed the research study to continue despite the complaints and violations of tribal policy, law, and federal regulations. The decision was made without a proper vote by the board and without considering the evidence and the opinions of the complainants, and without regard and input from the study's community advisory board or local community experts who provided testimony as to the reasons why they disassociated themselves from the research study they initially supported. The decision also contradicts the purpose and the guidelines of the Research Review Board, which is to review, regulate, and monitor research protocols and to protect the rights and welfare of human subjects in research. I've learned a lot from the experience, and I strongly feel that the Oyate, the people, have a right for decisions to be made regarding them as human subjects to be based on their policy and law. And I don't think that happened. I listen to the council meetings every time there is a meeting, and I know that the complainants came to you and they said their piece and they were sent back to the Research Review Board for resolve. And I appreciated that. I appreciated that you respect the Research Review Board, because the Research Review Board is a regulatory and monitoring of this type of work and business. And it's a mechanism for leadership, yourself, to be able to make informed decisions on all that impact the people. And they were sent back to the review board, and I was appreciative of that, because our job in regulatory is to provide protocol reviews. When research comes to the board, we look at it. Every board member is supposed to, it has their special skills, and they're supposed to comb through that research protocol, what it's about, what its benefits are, if the risks are going to be high, or if the benefits outweigh the risk, and so forth. That's what we're supposed to do. And sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes it's one or two of us. Sometimes it's only me. But regardless, I'm there for the people, and I'm there to help you make informed decisions. And in this regard, that did not happen. We had a special meeting on January 6th, and not all complainants were heard. There was only 4 complainants that were asked to come to the meeting, but there were so many more, even former employees that had resigned from that research study / program because they weren't being allowed to do what they were tasked out to do. This research protocol was number 261, the peaceful means, brought to us by Dr. Katie Edwards from the University of Nebraska and Lincoln. And initially I was one of the ones that opposed the implementation, the acceptance of that study, because there was 2 things. I've always maintained the stance that research is research and it should stay there. But in this particular case, they wanted to cross the boundaries into program services. And the reason why I was against that strongly is because outside organizations such as UNL, when they are doing research, this is the best example I can use to explain this is like it's insider trading. They're working with the community. They're gaining all this insight and data from our people in regards to needs. And then instead of stopping the research, completing the research, and then disseminating it to the communities, to the tribal council, to the tribal programs, instead they're using that data before it goes out to anybody, before it's even shared, before the outcomes are discovered and made. And so they're going after direct service grants. So when they do that, the government puts out money every year to help indigenous nations for the health and well-being. And so these research studies like UNL are going after program service grants, direct services. That puts them in direct competition with our tribal programs. And so this study, and you heard from the complainants a couple of weeks ago, that the programs that they're working under are tribal programs, and they went after the same grants. And yet they were over selected by peaceful means. And that's wrong. That's just wrong. That's siphoning off resources from our local community. And yet, one of the issues that was focused on is the 30 jobs that it provides. And yes, peaceful means provided those jobs, but yet they didn't follow through with their promise. They didn't follow through with their partnership with the tribe to allow the curriculum to be indigenized. There were elder women who disassociated themselves with it because of that. And they were treated in a very disrespectful manner. And that is against our Constitution. It's against our policy. One of the things in regards to our Constitution is that researchers that come here are supposed to respect our people in the manner of free, prior, and informed consent. That means that as a collective, our people are supposed to know everything about research studies that are brought here, everything. And when there is a disagreement somewhere, especially with the people they're working with amongst our relatives, in this case, research, that terminology is called key informants. When they approach the research review board, we ask them, what are they doing here? What do they want? And why are they wanting to do what they're doing? And we ask them who they're connected to, who they're working with. And so the curriculum they brought here was initially supported by females within our community. But as it began implementation, then you were informed that they became unhappy with it because there were some grave concerns that came about. And within that research protocol, and this was nearly a year ago that the first complainant came forth. And so because of the issues of them not being able to get on research review board because of the uninvolvement of the health director at the time, they were unable to get onto the research review board and for other various reasons. And so all that time, one of the requirements in regulation and monitoring is for the principal investigator, who was Dr. Katie Edwards, to report those things to her community advisory board, no matter what it is. They're called adverse events in research. She's required to report those to her community advisory boards, and they're supposed to help mitigate problems before they become concerns, before they become problems, before they become complaints. And in this case, they didn't. She didn't report those to the research review board. And so community members started calling me because on the consent forms, we required our contact information to be put on every form. And the reason why that is so that people can feel safe and know that they can report anything that they feel uncomfortable with, anything that they disagree with, or anything that they feel could be hurtful. And so they did that, and they reported it to me and probably others, but I did due diligence, and I always referred those back to our board to be addressed. And again, they went unaddressed, but never once and within this year were they reported by Dr. Katie Edwards of Peaceful Means. And that's a direct breach of ethics in regards to research ethics. And so that's something that that's in violation. And then the free, prior, informed consent. During our special meeting, we heard testimony from a father, from a child, and then 2 community members. And yet they were marginalized. They were treated as if they didn't matter. They were told and referred to as it's just one. But yet again, there wasn't appropriate notification given out to the public for all the others who had called and had verbal complaints. So they never got a chance to be heard. And then with the research review protocol, we were tasked to do our job. We were tasked to do due diligence. Each one of us members are supposed to be skilled in research. That's why we sat on the board. And so we're supposed to do a protocol review, look at, reevaluate the protocol that was presented by peaceful means, look at our laws and our policy, and state whether or not they had broken those policies and laws. And then we were supposed to present individual reviews to the health director. And we had a deadline date of a week. And yet, when that deadline came close, there was a vote initiated by proxy, which was not agreed to by the board. By proxy, meaning that there was a vote collected by email. And so some of the board members just stated, without doing a written review, without doing due diligence, that they supported peaceful means based on what they heard. But their decision was not based on policy. It was not based on law. And I presented my review in writing the way that it's supposed to, the way that the people deserve. And I stated several areas where they violated policy, especially that of ethics, where they violated our Constitution. And yet, a decision was made by proxy and reported to the council, and we were notified that it was reported that we were all in support of peaceful means. But I attested that, and I made the health director know that I was not in support of that. There was no consensus. And again, once again, reiterated that our people deserved for decisions to be made about them in regard, for them being human subjects, to be made based on our policy and law. And they weren't afforded that. And Peaceful Means was notified. Our complainants were notified, and I was notified that I could go to the HHS committee. I reserve my right to still go to the HHS committee, but I came here today because the council, this full body council, are the decision makers, the legislators of our law, enforcing the law and our policies. And I appreciate a lot of issues that were brought to you today were decided based on our law. But in regards to this Peaceful Means issue, it was not. And in research, there already is a negative stigma that hovers over research because of the wrongs that are done to Indigenous people as human subjects. That this is addressed appropriately. In my review, I recommended that the Peaceful Means be terminated. And one of the things that was brought up was the 30 jobs that it provided. But you know what? If this was looked at appropriately in regards to our law, then it would be noted that there could have been other ways to mitigate problems in partnership with the university and the tribe and the principal investigator. There could have been other avenues taken, because in regards to free, prior, informed consent that's supported by our Constitution, when Dr. Edwards presented to you a couple of weeks ago, it was brought up about the jobs. But you know what? That's coercion, especially with people that are marginalized like us. That's coercion. That's an act of violence. And that's the knowledge that I think you need to be aware of today. She was able to bring all of her staff people for political pressure. I remember council, and some members here weren't seated at the time, but I remember council being against people doing that, bringing political pressure. But yet this has happened and it's continuing to happen. But yet the issue isn't resolved. It isn't even being addressed, that UNL is guilty of violating our Constitution and instigating an act of violence in regards to using those jobs as political pressure. And that's wrong, and it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be stopped. One of the things in research that we looked at is relationship building. And the United States government under the Obama administration and Biden administration put out a declaration for Indigenous people to be respected. UNL should be aware of that. Dr. Edwards said she acknowledged that when she brought that protocol here. And yet she was able to haul around staff for political pressure while the complainants who were subjects, who were participants of the research study, were ignored and their issues minimized. And she brought up the language of adverse events. It shouldn't be, and it is not up to the researchers to determine the grade of adverse events in human subject research. That is up to this council. That is up to the local experts that provided testimony. That is up to the community advisory board that she was supposed to work with. And that is up to the research review board to acknowledge. So anytime that research is being conducted here, it's in respect to who we are as Lakota people, our foundational knowledge, in regards to our ways of knowing, in regards to our local experts. If our local experts disassociated themselves from this research protocol, that says something. That says a lot. And one child matters. One child. One child should never be marginalized, should never be discounted, because that one child had enough confidence and support from the parents that they were able to speak in front of a group of adults to share their experience and their dismay and their discomforts. And that one child speaks for probably hundreds of silent children that don't have that confidence to do that. Free, prior, informed consent needs to be acknowledged. And in a way, you all did that already today with other issues that you talked about, because the collective, the people are a collective. And when it comes down to law, when it comes down to deciding if one person, individual's rights are to be considered, it's usually, and it should always be, the collective rights of the people over those of individuals. Because as a people, that's who we are. So acknowledgement of free, prior, and informed consent is necessary, because there's obligations to that. And it is the obligation of balancing rights for your constituents, for our relatives. I think that's important to, again, for that knowledge to and understand the difference between informed consent of individuals. Informed consent of individuals is their right to decide their individual autonomy, whether or not they want to participate in research. And in this regard, the complaints that were brought to you, the participants were respected and afforded their rights to withdraw from that study, and they did. And that was good that those were upheld. But at the same time, the principal investigator disregarded, again, her community advisory board and her local experts. And went on to minimize. So in research, the benefit to the tribe is that we want to know the outcomes. The people want to know the outcomes of that research. And in this regard, they're piloting a self-defense curriculum. And that sounds good and it's necessary. Our children do need to know how to defend themselves. But when they're told, when there's adverse events happening and those are minimized, then that's wrong. And that's the issue that I'm standing on today, is that the violation of policy, the violation of our law in regards to research. Because it's going to continue if it's not addressed seriously and thoroughly. The board I resigned from did not do an appropriate protocol review. It's basically an investigation. A combing through and reevaluating of that research protocol in regards to the complaints that are being received. And did they violate policy and did they violate law? That's the issue. I found in several areas where they violated that, especially the serious breach of research ethics. That's a big deal. And yet they continued on to support them without doing an adequate review. So I'm coming here today for you to pass that knowledge on to you and pray that you take that seriously and pray that this isn't just pushed to the wayside. Because our people deserve to be respected. Our people deserve for research to benefit us. Because we're going to keep being human subjects. We're a target population.
Chairman. To ask her a question.
Question, go ahead.
So, Ms. Tobacco, I know you have your letter here and it's addressed to the director of the health admin, but this issue you have, did you take it up with the whole board? Isn't that the process that you go to them with your concerns and try to get it resolved there?
So as I just explained to you, I sat on that board for 6 years. And when this issue came to us for review, that's what I'm trying to tell you. There was not an adequate official review done because the health director held a vote by proxy, which was by email, without any review from other board members.
So it's you, the director of health admin, who else sits on that board? Is John Haas still on it?
No,
No? Who else is it?
the research review
Yeah,
board
yeah.
members. Jody Brewer, Dennis Yellow Thunder, myself, Angela Sam, newly seated Maria Zephyr, newly seated Camille Griffin, Warren Cross, and I don't think I missed anyone. Mr. Haas was there, but he resigned like over a month ago. So that's what I'm trying to tell you, is that the board didn't conduct an official adequate protocol review on these complaints, on this research study. There was the vote held by proxy, which was email, that's illegal. It was nothing that's not in our policy. It was nothing that was agreed upon by the full board. But yet it was reported that the board was in favor of the study continuing. And those kind of decisions are supposed to be made by consensus, and it wasn't. And you were not informed correctly. It was not consensus. The people have a right to know why those decisions were made and how it was conducted. There was no review. I presented a review. There was a decision made without that.
So there wasn't an official meeting?
So after the special meeting on January 6th, we heard the complainants, we heard testimony. And then after that meeting, it was agreed by the board that we each conduct an official protocol review individually, meaning that we look at everything, the protocol, laws, and policy. And if there's any violations, we do our write-up, like a review, we do our write-up. And then we were supposed to present that to the health director, and she gave us a week to do it. And then we were supposed to convene on January 15th, reconvene and go over our reviews, and then make a vote by consensus, a decision. So the Research Review Board is a decision body for research, regulatory, and monitoring. But the Research Review Board is not a governing body like the HHS, Judiciary, Land, or the Tribal Council. The Research Review Board is a mechanism to help the governing bodies like HHS, Judiciary, Land, and so forth, the Tribal Council as a whole, be able to make informed decisions. And so we were supposed to reconvene on January 15th, have our discussion, and then make a decision and recommendation as to regarding peaceful means. And that didn't happen because we were told in the email that the council wanted to see the health director on that following Tuesday with a decision. And so she didn't know what to do. And she reached out to me, and I told her to tell the council that what the plan was. And that we could come to the meeting with her if there was questions. But it didn't happen that way. And then next thing you know, she sent out an email and said there was a decision made, and she told the council that we were in support of peaceful means. But if you look at what I just sent you, I informed her and I informed the board that I wasn't in favor of it. There was no consensus. And as to my knowledge, there was nobody submitted an official review to be looked at, for you to be able to look at and make an informed decision. That's wrong. The people deserve decisions to be made about them as human subjects in regards to policy and law, and that was not done.
Councilwoman Tapio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess, are you here today, Deb, for us to approve your resignation? Because I think that's what you said, you resigned already. Or what kind of action is it you're asking? Because, you know, several of us have received many emails. I was just re-looking at my emails. That organization has gone through due diligence. They've made recommendations, and everything was positive for this group, you know. So that's the message that we got as council representatives. But today you're here telling us that you already resigned, and then you're going into this telling us all these other things. So what are you here asking today? Are you asking us to approve your resignation, or what is it? That's my question.
So I'm not here to ask for approval of my resignation. I resigned based on principle because what's being done to the people, the participants, is wrong. What's being done to even our leadership here is wrong. If in review of our Constitution, our leadership is obligated to adhere to the oath of office, which upholds the rights of indigenous people in their declarations. And that was violated by UNL, violated by the principal investigator of peaceful means. And that's what I'm bringing to you, is the knowledge of that and the importance to address that appropriately. And if you read my resignation that was submitted to the board, it was because I didn't support their vote by proxy, which is an illegal vote to continue to support peaceful means. And so I think that should be of grave concern to our leadership here and our people.
Well, couldn't Ms. Tobacco take her concerns back to the committee that the RRB is under? So I think that would be the recommendation. If you have grave concerns and issues with protocols, then I think you should take it back to the committee that the Research and Review Board is under. Thank you.
And with all due respect, I'm not a tribal employee. I resigned from the board. And in that case, it would be a matter of HHS. I'm coming to you as a community member. And so that's why I'm here to full council to say this. Because there's a reason why I resigned. And you need to know that. And you need to have that knowledge. There's community members that came forth a couple of weeks ago to you. There's children that are to be concerned about.
Go ahead, Councilman.
You know, not to be disrespectful, but you know, there was a whole meeting when this issue was dealt with. And you know, I know it's probably an important matter, just like all the other issues on our agenda. However, respecting the order of business, you know, we just had a councilman turn the floor over, and I've seen many times everyone in this council call out a point of order and stop certain people, but you know, we let this one go on. And, you know, like Mr. Watkins say, we had a law and order issue sitting on the agenda from last meeting we never got to address that are really important that I'm hoping we get to tonight. So no disrespect, Ms. Tobacco, but Mr. Chair, I think following the order of business, we should get back to our agenda, and if we have to have another meeting on this issue, we can bring it up. Because it sounds like we're not fully ironed out on this issue. Sounds like it needs to come back to a committee. It needs to be investigated, researched, or whatever. But we're not at that point because we only have one side here. We don't have the other side. One meeting we had the other side, we didn't have another side. And so I'm requesting, you know, that we bring this issue up in a committee and then bring it back for a full discussion and be prepared with everything in front of us. Because you know, respecting the order of business, we have people that's been waiting that are actually on the agenda, And this, like I said, this law and order stuff's been on the agenda. No disrespect, Mr. Tobacco, because I know this is important, but however, we don't have all the facts in front of us again. We heard that time and time again on other issues, so I hope that we can just send this back to a full HHS committee, get all the facts, have both sides there, and then make a sound decision and then come back with something. Because it sounds like we made a decision already on this issue and then it popped back up, just like the Oglala issue. So can we move along? Because I know we want to work as long as we can, but law and order issues have been pending since last month's meeting, and we're really hoping to get to them. No disrespect.
Chair.
Councilwoman Sears.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I wanted to say was we always have to look at due process. You know, hearing both sides is what I would like to do because, you know, I'm getting messages too and that they want to be heard. So if we're gonna allow one person to come forward, then they wanna also be heard. So I think the best route to do is what Mr. Still Little Dog said, was to bring it that route, Deb. And I think you should write like what to us, to the council or to the HHS committee, so we can maybe set up some kind of a hearing or some kind of a complaint process to hear it, so everybody can be coming in and also have a say. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Councilman Lundgren.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, you know, I'm on the same page too. Because if I remember right, at our meeting with this issue, we referred it to the RRB, the Research Review Board, and they were to sit down with both entities and is supposed to iron out all these things, these concerns or these issues that were arising. They were to sit down and figure it out. But it sounds like today we have a huge concern at the RRB level as well. So that's a huge concern. So my thing is, and after that meeting with the RRB, I think it was supposed to go to the HHS committee with the decision or whatever the outcome was before it even comes to the council level. So I think that, you know, that is a huge concern. And don't get me wrong, you know, the work is a good thing for our people that's out there, that both of these programs are individuals that are doing, but we need to make sure these are ironed out. So I think that, you know, we do need to, you know, probably have, I mean, I'm trying to figure out the solution too, but you know, it's a concern when you're hearing from a RRB, you know, member with the things that are being said today. You know, that's a concern. So my thing is that what do we have? The RRB along with peaceful means and whatever issues that are arising at the HHS committee is what I'm thinking. So, I mean, if there needs to be a motion, maybe somebody make that motion or I'll make that motion, but you know, the thing is it needs to be settled.
Okay. Council Little Hawk Weston.
You know, try to stay a little quiet about this situation because, you know, Deb is from our district but we also have peaceful means in our district. And I really believe that when they came to the council meeting last time at Prairie Winds Casino, I think the action was for them to go back to the Research Review Board and settle that issue between both parties. They did meet Saturday. I was reading everything that Deb had given us. They did meet and they did make a decision. You know, Ms. Tobacco, you know, was the only one that opposed them, but the rest of the board approved them, supported them. And, you know, maybe there is some concerns with it, but I'm like the rest, you know, I'm also getting messages and positive messages. And, you know, You know, I said it in that meeting and I'll say it again tonight, is that I do support peaceful means. I do think that they are doing good. You got a lot of young people on there, and I always believe in empowering our young people. And I'm gonna sit here tonight as one of the tribal leaders and say that openly. You know, we gotta quit fighting sometimes as adults when we're not happy about certain things. In this circle, things always don't go our way either. You win some, you lose some. But we never walk away and I'm never upset about it. I've learned to live through every term that way. So tonight, I'm just gonna say that, you know, our people out there, 30 of them, if that's how many are working in that peaceful means, they're working and they're doing research, they're doing what needs to get done. We heard them. You know, I'm not about to terminate a grant that was given to our tribe to do this work. You know, they have a research review board that is made up of qualified people from our reservation, and I think Ms. Tobacco named some of them. We have a health administrator who also knows what she's doing, and that's Miss Lisa Schrader. So, you know, tonight, it really puts us in a bad situation when we have to sit here and try to take sides of these issues. And I'm not gonna do that tonight. You know, I really believe that we need to move forward. You know, if it means to, you know, take back whatever it needs to go to HHS committee, you know, then I'm like the rest of them. You know, we need to bring all of the parties to that meeting. You know, Ms. Schrader, our health administrator, and all of those research review board members that sit on there. I also know that Peaceful Means, according to what they were telling us, also has an advisory board. They have an advisory board made up of people on our reservation that sit on there and help them, give them guidance and direction. So tonight, you know, it's not about, you know, fighting or anything, you know, it's trying to get things done in a right way. And tonight, I'm just gonna have to say that tonight, you know, we do have a long agenda, like, you know, Councilman Little Dog said, and no disrespect to Ms. Tobacco, but, you know, we need to get some business done today. And I really believe that, you know, Ms. Tobacco, you know, if you could bring back maybe her specific issues, you know, I know it says it in your letter, your concern of why you're resigning, you know, again, you know, I hope you can think about that. You know, you are also, you know, just as, you know, qualified as everyone else that sits on that board. But, you know, sometimes, you know, it's really hard when we have to hear these things. But tonight, you know, I just really believe that this should get referred. Maybe it's not on the agenda anyway. And so I think it just probably needs to come back to the HHS committee. If it needs to, we can address it there. So, you know, just, you know, want to say that tonight, you know, because, you know, I've heard both the side that came to us at the casino, and I knew where it was supposed to go, and that's where it went. And they settled it, I thought, but now it came tonight. So we can just maybe address that in HHS committee. Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna move on here.
Could I offer a closing?
If you're brief about it, we need to move on. Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate everything that you said, and I respect that. This is not a fight that I brought in regards to ending the study. I brought forth my reason for resigning because in clarity, there was not an official adequate review done when it was sent back to the review board. And that's what I'm saying. The decision to continue to support them was not investigated by the review board. There was no protocol review done. They held a proxy vote by email, which was basically based on popularity. And that's not what the people deserve. If anything is to be done and decided, it should be required for each research review board member to do their job. They get a stipend to review protocols. And in this case, they were supposed to review the complaints, the testimony, and do a protocol review to see if there was policies violated, if the law was violated. And that wasn't done. And that's the issue I'm bringing to you today. So if HHS is going to deal with that, and I hope that's required by the Research Review Board to do an adequate review and to state why they chose to continue to support peaceful means, because that's what the people deserve. They should have a written review in writing saying why the basis of law and policy, if peaceful means did not violate any policy and violate any laws, then their review should say that. They should justify why they agreed. That's all I'm bringing forth. And in closing, that's what the issue is.
Okay, thank you. You know, we got a decision to make here. You know, the supper is ready. But we need to get the next line item taken care of. So, okay, so I'm gonna do a brief 10-minute break to get your food. Get your food, and so we can continue.
The next issue is, and just.
So we already said it.
Reno. Guy in the middle over there?
No, over here,
Oh, that's.
next to him, over here to the right. Harold, can you give us a prayer?